We're live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live out on the interwebs, on Twitch, live on Twitch. That was a bit of a scary face, Neil, but we'll come back to that. Hi everyone, welcome to Big Machine Talks. I'm Big Machine Demon. Before I introduce the gentleman on that side of the screen, he's a lovely gentleman. A few things to get sorted, as we usually do if you're new here, or if you have been here previously. Down at the bottom of the screen are two commands that you can put into chat. !podguest will give you all of the information about Neil. And ! Pod question will give you the opportunity to submit a question, and it will come straight through to me as I have an iPad next to me. I can see that there are submissions already, which is fantastic. With that being said, I will now introduce said gentleman. He is known as Mr. Samwa Arcade Parts. He's also known as Mr. One Click Print. But to me, he's Neil. To you, he's Retro Man Cave. Neil, welcome to Big Machine Talks. How are you today, sir?
Hello, I'm fantastic, thank you. Good to see you all. Hello, everyone in the chat. Nice to see the regulars in here.
I know, it's great. Unfortunately, sounds are disabled because otherwise nothing would get done and we'd be in hilarious laughter the entire time. So, but thank you very much, Neil. It's been, I think it's fair to say, a very long time coming, but we've never managed to meet calendars, and you've been busy, I've been busy, and God knows what else. But
yeah,
you're finally here.
Nice. It's nice to have an interview with a friend. You know, because we have become friends over the years. It's really nice. So it's a nice, relaxed, hopefully, interview today, and not, as I was saying before we started, an expose on Retro Man Cave.
Not yet, but that's what he doesn't know yet. This is your life either, so don't panic about that. But yes, as I said, if you do want to learn a little bit more about Neil, ! Pod guest, if you are new here and you don't know who Neil is, I will. In fact, that's probably a good segue. So what I normally do is I hand over a virtual microphone towards my screen. So if you reach over, Neil, I will wait. Which way is it going to go? There we go. He's got his own mic. Look at that. Did you see that? Magic, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, if you want to introduce yourself about who you are, what you do in about 30 seconds or a minute, that would be grand.
Sure. My name's Neil. I am the Retro Man and owner of The Cave, which we're in now. A place where I like to share and enjoy retro computers, retro games, retro technology, anything really that takes my interest that isn't current generation. We repair things, we tell the story about things, and we try to preserve both physically the items that people send in, because I get a lot of donations, and also just the history in any way that we can, so that the story of computers, microcomputers, consoles, all of that is preserved for future generations. And most importantly, we can all play some games and enjoy them.
Indeed. And that's something that you and I enjoyed a few weeks ago, as we went head-to-head playing a multitude of different games, which I think was wonderful. We both certainly enjoyed that, and we had a lot of head-to-head battles, which I think none of us will disagree that was nothing short of brilliant. But yeah, I mean, as I said, it's one of those glorious moments where you and I have become friends, and our relationship, I guess, has grown year on year. And funny enough, the way that I discovered you was actually quite ironic, because basically I was going through Twitch a few years ago, and I was looking at retro, and I saw your channel, and I was like, oh, this guy's actually repairing something. Now, the ironic part is, I was actually looking at you, and I believe it was Mark Fix's stuff. I think you were repairing a laser active at the time. And the ironic thing is that right now, me and my brother are currently replacing all the capacitors, all of the bloody capacitors, the many capacitors on a laser active.
F's in the chat for respect, please, because it's not an easy job.
Yeah, exactly. It's if you've never seen how many capacitors are in a laser active, it is not pretty, to say the least. But as I said, it's ironic that that's kind of how we met. And I remember kind of interacting with you in chat, and the first thing that I guess, how can I say it? I guess the first thing that I was introduced to was the fact of how warming you were to new people into your chat, and obviously how dedicated you were to the craft that you do. And I think that's something that obviously has carried through all of your YouTube videos and the streams that you do. And I think most people in chat would agree with me that your meticulous and warm nature into what you do has oddly led you to building that wonderful cave that you have there, and fantastic content as well. And as I said, I don't think there's a single person that I know has ever said a bad word about you. And I think, again, that's testament to the, not that I know of, the testament to the amazing work that you do. And as I said, it's nice to actually genuinely meet someone who's incredibly dedicated to the craft that they do, and is just genuinely a nice person as well.
That's very kind. Thank you. Yeah, I don't think I could run the channel if I wasn't genuinely 100% interested in the topic, in the machines that I'm working on. People would just see straight through that. So when I'm squealing like a schoolboy, a new item that's come into the cave, I can't wait to get this working. It's completely genuine. Yeah, I may look like a grown man, but I'm a little boy at heart.
we all are, Neil. We all are. I mean, look at me. I mean, I'm going on for 35. I've got Crash Bandicoot with my hat on. I've got like a Doom thing here and an Angry Bird there. I mean, we got to keep young at heart, right? I mean, that's what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And then that leads on to you and your preservation work as well. I mean, without blowing your trumpet too much, I mean, that is a very strong collection that you have behind there, and it never ceases to amaze me. The amazing things. Like every time I look at what's behind you, I find new things.
Well, you're seeing a corner of the cave that's extended recently.
Look at
the backdrop that you're used to is over here, which has the systems on. And then I've extended the shelving recently to have more games on display. So this is mostly games.
Nice.
But, it's nice to get them on display and not hidden away in a cupboard. Yeah.
And speaking of games, I still didn't manage to beat you at Sensible World of Soccer. Damn it!
Oh.
One day. But yeah, I mean, coming on to some of your newer stuff that you've been doing, you currently have a Kickstarter running. I'm a proud backer of it. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that at all.
Sure. Do you want to bring up the shopping channel overlay while I talk about it?
Well, ! Podcast will actually give you the information and link to Neil's Kickstarter.
Oh, wonderful. So, okay, if you do ! Podcast, what I've got a Kickstarter for at the moment, it's my very first Kickstarter, so it's been quite an experience. It's a book called Retro Tea Breaks, which is based on the interviews I do by the same name, where I chat to people who were in the gaming industry when it first started and in those earlier years, really. And I've transcribed the interviews and then thrown them back at the guests to expand on them, to break out some technical things that they talk about, to get photos from the guests, and just make a really nice compilation to preserve this oral history of the early industry. Because in those early days, when we first played Pong or, an Amstrad CPC or whatever, we had no idea that this thing was going to become bigger than Hollywood. These guys, this was not an organized movement. This was not a planned thing. So it's really nice to hear the stories, particularly from the people who aren't frequently interviewed, not the big Sega people, the big Nintendo people. It's nice to hear who was that guy that did the pixel art on a couple of games, in the corner. Who was that guy who was a teenage bedroom coder who burned himself out but produced a game that we all love? That sort of thing, and get their stories. So it's really nice. And as an option, you can get a set of collector's cards, which I've got here, all made by Stu Cambridge of Sensible Software. So he has rather wonderfully done the pixel art of all of the guests. There's George Sanger there.
Very cool.
Richard Garriott, who did Ultima, which you've got playing in the background.
I certainly do. There it is.
And Rob Hubbard. And there was also an option to get your own face commissioned. They've all sold now, that top tier, 40 commissions. But Mark Ferrari. But Stu is going to make space for another 10, maybe 20 commissions. He's been clearing his diary because it's been so popular. So if you back it now, there will be the option to upgrade when that tier becomes available to get the extra commissions if you want.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's 15 quid for the book. So I think that's quite reasonable.
Agreed.
Books go. And yeah, it's been a real ride, that Kickstarter, I have to say.
It's your first Kickstarter, right?
First Kickstarter,
yeah. That must have been a hell of an experience, because, I mean, I've never done one myself. But, yeah, to have the, I guess, the confidence in what you're producing, and obviously the book is going to be fantastic. And I think it's something that's definitely needed, which is why I backed it. I think it's nice to see a book that isn't just information for the sake of it. I think there's a lot of, obviously, as you said, it's the stories behind, I guess, the storytellers of games, right? And I think that's the nice part of it. But yeah, that must have been pretty scary to be able to hit the button and go, well, this is either going to work or not. Click. Here you go. Right, I'm going to run away now.
Yeah. It really was. I purposefully tried to steer away from the coffee table style book because there are so many great ones. There are so many people making great coffee table books. And I thought, well, why don't I make something you can chuck in your bag and read on the tube, read on the bus? Just try a different approach. And it seems to have struck a chord. Yeah, it's good.
Oh, as I said, I think it's nice to have something that's not just data filled. It's going to be, as you said, filled with information that As you said, it's the stories. If people haven't listened to or watched your tea breaks, it's going to be a bit of an eye opener to, as you said, learn a little bit more about the stories behind. Myself, I had Stu Cambridge on here, and he was telling me things I'd never even known about how certain things in cannon fodder work and stuff like that, which is fantastic to hear those creative ways that people got around certain things back in the day and be limited by the technology they had. So yes, if you are interested, please make sure you're going back the project. It's something that I'm very proud of.
Stu's also a guest in the book, so he had to do a self-portrait of himself.
Look at his little face.
There you go.
Wonderful. and speaking of self-portraits, I believe there's a little one to your right there, which looks a little bit somebody famous.
From Mrs. Pillock, a cross-stitch of art that was Stu Cambridge's picture of me originally. But I think the amazing Pillock is in chat.
He certainly is. So very good job to Mrs. Pillock there. That looks absolutely
Thank you
fantastic.
Very much.
For those who are listening to this, it's a cross-stitch pixel art version of Neil, which looks absolutely fantastic. So a very good job there. So with that out of the way, we're going to jump all the way back to younger Neil, which I have seen some videos of younger Neil, but we'll come on to that later. So what is younger Neil's first ever computing memory?
Oh, well, that's a coincidence. I have right next to me a photograph.
Oh, look at that.
That is my first ever computer, 1985, I think it was. Amstrad CPC 464.
Look at that.
On a lace tablecloth.
Mm.
Nice. With heavy, I think, sort of velour curtains behind it. Beautiful.
Does a photo get any more retro? I love it.
So the 464 was a joint gift to me and my brother that Christmas. He played it for all of about 30 seconds, I think, before he got bored and went and played football. And I was just mesmerised by this thing. I think that's my first memory, although I do have a memory of going to visit an uncle who worked in America and travelled back and forward. And he actually had an Apple II and what's the game where you die of dysentery? Oregon Trail.
Yes, I remember that. God.
Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
So I think I've got this memory where I think that might have come before the Amstrad CPC. I might have seen that, which is a bit unusual for a British person to have had the Apple II and Oregon Trail as their first experience. That's a very American experience. So I do have a good memory of that as well, but mostly it was Amstrad CPC, yeah.
Do you know, it's funny you say that because I put out a tweet literally a few hours before we came online because I just changed. I'm terrible with changing over calendars, but the calendar that you actually made for charity is literally just there. As you can see, it says August for anyone who tries to catch me out and say I haven't turned it around. And the actual image is an Apple II, which is hilarious. But then I thought, well, what was an Apple II in Spain? Was it an Apple DOS, which then would have caused more confusion?
Good question.
I know. Right, anyway, we'll leave that one for chat to discuss.
You had the Amstrad CPC 472 in Spain.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was a one-off that was made for only a period of a month or two to get around the Spanish tax, whereby if you had a certain amount of memory, you were taxed more or less. So they put extra memory in the CPC 464, but they didn't electrically attach it to anything. They were just in there doing nothing so that they could get around tax laws, and then it all changed and they just sold the 464. So there you go. That's a very rare computer, the Amstrad 472.
There we go. 2 random questions for chat. Did anyone know that? And what was an Apple II in Spain? There we go. Right. So yeah, I mean that's a fantastic choice as your memory, and the fact that you've actually got a photograph of it makes it that much more personal as well. And it is a lovely photo. I think we can all agree. So I guess coming into kind of your. I mean, what age was you when you had that?
I would have been about 6 years old then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's quite a young age to be given.
I'm younger than I look.
Yeah, he is. He certainly is. He's still young at heart, like myself. Don't worry. But I mean, I guess coming into kind of your interaction with computers. I mean, it's obviously a fantastic computer, and obviously, was coding something that you were interested in? Did you code any of your own games on that system, or was it?
Coding was something I was interested in. I mean, with the Amstrad, I wouldn't have got further than simple basic programs input from Amstrad Action magazine.
Ooh.
I got more into it when I moved on to the Amiga next with the likes of Amos. And then Blitz Basic. I did some more complex things with that. And then I did go on to study computing at college, so did C programming. I did it in a really weird order. So I taught myself C programming by the book when I was a teenager. Then I went to college and we were taught Pascal, which you would consider a step back. That's almost like the thing you do first to get the hang of it, and then you go on to do C programming. And then in the second year at college, the lecturer went off with stress. So we had another lecturer step in who taught us COBOL. Ooh. So I had to do a year of COBOL after having learned C and Pascal. Yeah, it was a very odd order. But C is still my favourite.
That seemed a bit odd that the lecturer would come in and then teach you something completely different. Was there any
particular
reason?
It was bizarre. But yeah, so we did C. I used to like C, and then there used to be this library called Allegro, which I think is still being supported and maintained.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
And that gave you just a library of functions to add sprites and music and things like that. So it was almost like, it turned it into like Blitz Basic or Amos again. You had these pre-made functions that you could just drop straight into your C programming and make cool things. But it's been a long time since I've programmed in anger, to be honest. It really has. Yeah.
In anger, I must get this working. Yeah, saying programming gives me fond memories. I think it was one of the Ataris. I used to remember my dad used to get magazines and try and code stuff and spend like hours doing this stuff, and it'd be like, right, it finally works, and you hit it and just going and then error, it'd be like crap, and you've got to try and like go through and find it all, and then once you do it, it's just like this really naff game of like a rip off of Space Invaders, and you're going, was it really
I got my dad to
yes,
type in a listing from Amstrad Action once, and it must have taken him 2 days, and we didn't know at that time that you could save to tape. So we just had to really carefully leave the machine on and make sure it didn't reset or didn't get knocked or anything. And after all that time, the thing didn't run. We couldn't figure out where the syntax error was and why it wasn't working. So it was just 2 days of typing practice for him, basically. That's all it came down to.
Mavis typing, coding for typing. But yeah, it's funny how modern day coding just allows you to go, hey, this is what's wrong, boom, like right there, and you go, oh, of course it's that. And now, and like back then, it was like, I've just typed out 56 pages of code. Yeah. Which semicolon have I missed out on this page? You like painstakingly going line by line to try and find things.
It's wonderful how those two worlds have come together now. I dipped into teaching myself some assembly on the Amstrad CPC a while back. I haven't got very far into it. I was just trying to get the basics. And so if you use something like WinApe, an emulator, you can do your programming in another window. You can see all the registers. You can see exactly what's happening at the hardware level without having to have any hardware. It's so cool. And likewise with the Commodore 64, there's a whole IDE. There's a whole visual sort of studio, if you like, for the Commodore 64 to program. So there's never been a better time to program for those old systems. It's wonderful.
No, and I agree, because I mean, there's been loads of different games that have kind of come out for multi-platforms. I mean, Xeno Crisis comes to mind. I think there was a few others that have kind of been developed using original Mega Drive hardware, which then obviously, as you said, has now enabled people to kind of take their old school tech and give it a kind of a modern twist, because obviously the power of modern tech has then just allowed things to become a lot more easier to produce for. So yeah, it's funny how those worlds kind of, all things come full circle, right? It was like you think old tech falls off, and then something happens and it kind of sparks this whole spiral cycle of kind of old things becoming new again. Yeah, I mean, I'm still baffled the fact that I can upgrade my Amiga far past what it was manufactured to be, and it can do all these crazy things, and it's like, it's amazing how modern tech has now gone back to improve the past. But yeah, again, it's testament to people actually, such as yourself, to keep these things alive, and obviously people being dedicated to actually make sure that, you know, these things stay in history as well.
That's your Amiga 600, isn't it?
It is, the thing that you hate. Yeah, he doesn't hate them. It's just a joke. It's just a joke before you all go crazy in chat. But no, it's lovely to have those memories of the older computing memories, because I think that's something that's being lost in a lot of the modern generation, where, you know, we live in such a world where it's a click and it happens, right? And I think that's why channels like yours are quite nice, because you not only do a deep dive on the actual device itself, but you sit there and meticulously take the thing apart, explain each part in detail, and then obviously show it running. I think for probably some of your younger viewers, if there are any, I assume there probably are, it kind of gives them a kind of one snapshot view of kind of, you know, how things were way back when. And obviously in some cases, perfect example is your PC Engine one, how you took that and gave it kind of a modern upgrade without damaging it too much, and kind of, you know, gave it a whole new lease of life, which again is fantastic to the work that you do as well.
Yeah, I do when I upgrade them, I do try to be as sympathetic as possible. So I try to avoid drilling holes and things like that while introducing modern upgrades. Because these machines weren't perfect. Nobody really liked waiting, 15 minutes for a tape to load. So if you can find ways around
Oh,
that,
really?
then
No, I loved it. Seeing all those colours flash on the screen and weird noises. Come on, your sense of fun has faded.
But but you don't want to be drilling holes in things if you can
No.
avoid it. But then at the same time, there were upgrades like that happened back in the day. There were Amigas back in the day or Commodore 64s that had switches drilled in and added to the top to play around with the SID chip and turn it into a bit more of a synthesizer, if you like. There's a balance. If you drilled holes in your C64 back in the day and put switches in, then I'm happy to do that in the modern day. To be honest, it's authentic.
No,
there's enough C64s going around, but then I wouldn't do it on a Sam Coupe or something really rare. There's a balance to be found with each system, and you've got to remember also when I'm making series about these machines, when I'm explaining all of these things, there's no way that I can be an expert on every single machine that comes through the cave. A lot of the time, I'm teaching myself this, and my way of validating that I've taught myself this well enough is that I can then explain it. That's the sign of having fully understood something, is to be able to teach it. So I'm sort of testing myself a lot as well in explaining these things. Yeah.
No, sure. I mean, I've kind of, I guess, briefly experienced, I guess, some of the technical marvels and maybe disadvantages of certain consoles. I mean, with my streams, I try and use as much real hardware as possible, and there's been some funny instances when I've tried to use my Amiga and all the caps failed and it started doing some really weird graphical stuff, but that's just caps failing over time. And then there was that tremendous fish smell that you get through failed caps, which is glorious for no one who has experienced that. It is like walking through Spitalfields Market in London and having your room smell of wafty, warm fish smell. It's tremendous. But yeah, I mean, by using these old consoles kind of during streams, you kind of start to understand what they were trying to achieve. I mean, a perfect example, I mean, you can't quite see it, but I've got a Philips CDI sat there, and the Philips CDI divides a lot of people. Some people absolutely adore it. I sit on the fence with it at the moment. I can see what they were trying to achieve back then, but yeah, I think they should have just left it as an entertainment device instead of trying to force it to be a games device. But even then, for some of the games that were on it, it serves its purpose. But yeah, for most of the stuff that's on it, it's not great.
It's a funny machine. There's no reason why it couldn't have come out several years earlier. The CDI standard was defined before the CD-ROM standard, before the Yellow Book standard. It just took Philips ages to produce the thing, by which time we were going into that age of interactive movies, which we all know were mostly terrible.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much... It was pretty much an interactive movie machine, wasn't it? That's what it could do. You could play The Seventh Guest on it really well. You could play Space Ace on it really well. But anything more, it's terrible.
I mean, you saw me painstakingly trying to play Mad Dog McCree with the mouse controller, and that was just a disaster.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that amazes me about the CDI is the plethora of different joysticks and joypads and remotes and mice and God knows what else that were made for it. It was like, this doesn't work, let's do another revision. This doesn't work, let's do another revision. And then they finally settled on a gamepad, and I'm like, why didn't you just do this? This works. This is good. This is a good thing you've made. And the pad actually isn't that bad. But they're very hard to get hold of.
Yesterday from Computer Museum in Holland. There's a really good computer museum there, and they've got a prototype of the CDI because Philips, were largely based in the Netherlands.
Sure.
And it was obviously a lot more capable than we ever saw, because they had this stack system of CDIs, and there were slices, and one of them was a dual floppy disk slice for the CDI. There were all these extra add-ons that you could... I don't think they were released, those add-ons, but, they obviously had plans for it. And there was plans for a CDI 2 around about 1997, I think. That was due, but that was dropped. That never materialised.
I think the one thing that made me laugh was... I remember my brother very kindly managed to get hold of that CDI for me, and he was like, you do realise you need to buy an add-on for it, right? And I was like... add-on? What? And then suddenly out came this big, huge thing, and I was like, what does that do? And he was like, it allows you to play games. And I went, what? All of that? He was like, yes. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm expecting big things out of this. And then I put on, unfortunately, one of the Zelda games and wanted to bleach my eyes out with what I saw. It was Yeah,
There's an interesting story about the Zelda game on CDI. Let me find. Hang on, it's to do with one of the developers in the book.
Top trumps of pixel art. Here we go.
Let me find him. Storytelling 10. Bill Volk. There he is. Bill Volk, who worked at Activision. He was telling the story about this great legal case that goes all the way back to the what was the first console, 1971, 1972. Come on, Neil, before the Atari 2600. Chat, I'm looking at you. They're going to get it. Come on, chat.
There we go. Someone's going to get it.
They'll tell us. But the first console was Ralph Bear. I think that was his name. He put all the patents on it. And so basically he's no longer with us. But he's been this huge patent troll, if you like, where every single game system that's come out has had to pay something towards the patents from going back to that original console.
Wow.
And so Nintendo became part of the legal battle. And as a way of sort of reducing the amount that they had to pay because of the patents, they came up to some kind of agreement where Philips were allowed and some other companies were allowed to produce Zelda games. I'm not explaining it perfectly well. But if you go back and watch the interview or read the interview in the book, he explains why Zelda appeared on the Philips CDI because of those legal battles and why it's such a terrible game.
Someone has said the Magnavox Odyssey.
That's the one. Thank you very much. The Magnavox Odyssey.
Good job, Retro Boombox and Control Alt Reset. Good job.
So the Magnavox Odyssey
hit my clap sound, but I haven't got it. So,
so the Magnavox Odyssey has a part to tell in the story of why Zelda appeared on the Philips CDI.
That's going to be in the book.
Yes, yeah.
There we go. There's more of a reason to go back Neil's Kickstarter if you want to read that book. There's the link in chat. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing how these little stories creep up that you wouldn't even realise. I mean, I had no idea about that. But yeah, I think it's safe to say it probably would have been best for those games not to be released on that platform because in terms of the CDI and its memories, just type it into YouTube. Most people go straight to that and rip the games apart. The Mario game is all right. I'll let that slide, but yeah, the Zelda games are.
There's a decent Tetris game on it.
Yes, that is true. I've actually got a copy in that drawer right there. Funny enough, but yeah, it's again. I think it was one of those things where it came out probably a bit too late, and when you start to look at what was around it, it just couldn't keep up, and it's such a shame because again, I think the idea was right, the execution not great.
Yeah. What makes me laugh about systems like the CDI, and somebody's mentioned the CDTV in chat there, big promo, and other systems like that, is when they appeared in the shops, so in the UK and in places like Dixon's, where we'd go and hang out to see what the latest tech was.
Absolutely.
We were pretty young. We were naive to business. But we looked at that thing for 30 seconds and we knew that was rubbish. We knew that was going nowhere. The Amiga CD32, we knew that wasn't needed and that was 2 years too late at a very young age. It just baffles me that companies put this kind of stuff out there.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes we'd... actually, Sensible Stu has just popped into chat. Hello, Stu.
Hello, Stu. We've got to find his card now, haven't we?
We've got to find his card. I like this. For everyone who pops in chat, I think Neil's probably got a pixel art for them. So the top trumps of pixel.
There Stu has entered the chat.
There's Stu. He's coming in chat. Welcome, Stu. Hello. Hope you're well. But yeah, I feel like for every company, there's at least one failure that really mars them, and I feel like for Philips that's probably the main one. There probably are other devices, but yeah, it's as I always said, that there's always that thing where there's incredibly passionate people about a product, and I know there's a ton of people, the same with the Jaguar, the same with the CDI. There are those who constantly try and push that it's a great thing and it was brilliant at the time and stuff like that, and it probably was, but unfortunately it's one of those things where when you start to look wider around it, it just wasn't, and it's such a shame. Yeah, it just wasn't. And I know there's probably people who are going to watch this back and hurl abuse at me, but unfortunately, it just wasn't when you compare it to the other tech that was out there at the time. And it was a missed opportunity. I think we can all probably.
Fortunately for Philips, they had so much to fall back on, but when it came to Commodore, that was it. It was one step too far with the 600 and the CD32.
Alley, 552. Another great video you did. So I guess coming on to kind of the Retro Man Cave, as you're best known as. Now, I've done a little bit of research, and I don't know if this is true, but according to YouTube, the 1st of January 2012 was the day that Retro Man Cave was formed. I don't know if that was the day the first video came out. I will let you two.
No, it was formed because I was in a place in my life where I had to sell off my retro collection. You know how life comes in peaks and troughs. In that particular place, I needed some money, and unfortunately, really sadly, because I had a beautiful collection of stuff, I had to sell my retro collection. So I set up the channel to put eBay listings up because I had such really nice examples of systems. For example, I had an Atari ST that had never been taken out of the sealed bag. It was still brand new in the box with everything. I wanted to take videos to show just how good these items were for eBay. So that's why I registered the channel. And it was in the basement of my house. My wife at the time had bought a sign that said Man Cave. So that was hanging on the door. So I just looked around and went, okay, retro stuff, Man Cave, register.
There we know how the story was formed. That was easy.
And then nothing was produced then until 2017. That was it. I did my eBay and I forgot all about the channel. I forgot it existed.
Wow.
And then I just logged into YouTube one day and was like, oh yeah, I've got that channel. Maybe I should use it.
So what was the catalyst to kind of get you to start producing videos? I mean, obviously you said you had that eBay set up. What was kind of the impetus to get back into YouTube and start producing videos then?
To actually produce them was it's a combination of things. So I'd had a career in IT, which I still had at the time, but I was feeling pretty burned out. I just had a job where I'd spent a year living and working in Paris, in France, as an IT director. And that particular job was a merger between an American and a French company that went horribly wrong, came to an abrupt halt. And then I just had to come home very quickly. Not me personally, just the merger went horribly wrong. Who would imagine the French and the Americans not getting on? Anyway, so I had to come back, find another job. I was feeling pretty burned out. I moved to Wiltshire, where I knew nobody except for Lily, my other half, because she happened to be working in that area. So it's like, okay, you've got a solid job, you're stable, I'll move to where you are. That only seems fair. So I sat there thinking, well, this is my hobby. I'm into retro, but I don't really know anyone else who is. I don't really know anyone else in this area. I've got to travel a long way to go and see my friends. Try and reach out and connect to people through my hobby. So that's why I started making videos, just to try and find like-minded people. I was of an age where I didn't care anymore about looking cool. I don't care if you think I'm a nerd. I'm just going to put it all out there. This is what I like, deal with it. And it just seemed to encourage other people to come forward and start chatting and start engaging. And slowly but surely, this incredible community started to form, which was the goal. It wasn't a goal to be a full-time YouTuber. It wasn't a goal to make money out of it. It was a goal to connect with people. And that is really the jewel in the crown of what RMC is, I think, is the community and what's grown. So by that measure, an absolute success.
No, I can't reiterate that at all. And I think that's the one thing that
yes, the word is
the thing that amazed me the most, as I said, when I found you on Twitch that time, and I remember it because I sent the link to my brother and I went, you may want to watch this because this guy repairs stuff. And if I find the message I sent it to him, I'm going to screenshot it and send it to you, because the thing that amazed me the most, and it's, I don't know if anyone in chat can relate or whether yourself can, but there are times when you can pop into people's Twitch if you've not been there before and get a very rude and abrupt kind of like, oh, okay, right, I shouldn't be here. I'm not cool enough, or I'm not the right demographic to be in here. But as I said, the first thing I noticed was how welcoming yourself and obviously your community are, and then that's the same with your Discord as well. I mean, there's so many people who are currently in chat and yourself who have massively helped me with my streams, helped me repair stuff, helped me answer questions. And as I said, I think there's a difference between being you yourself in what you do and having you and a huge amount of support and community around you, because there's times where we all have ups and downs. We may not be inspired, but there's always that person, whether it be yourself or someone in your community or whoever, who can ignite that spark of creativity, or even just say hello. A simple hello, how are you, and stuff like that can really help. And it isn't always about retro. There's a variety of different things that get talked about in your Discord, and obviously the streams that you do as well. And I think that's again a massive testament to the amount of dedication and the amazing community that you have surrounding yourself, which again has obviously led to you growing yourself and obviously the cave and the amazing work that you do right now.
Yeah, it really has. So shout out to all the cave dwellers who are on Discord.
Indeed.
And Dean actually has his own room in my Discord,
Mean
Machine Dean room. So you can chat to both Dean and me on Discord. I don't know if we've got a link anywhere. Anyone who's on Discord, chuck a link in the chat.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Everyone is welcome.
I have the Mean Machine Den, I think it's called, where I just spout crap usually. But yeah.
We've had to contain him in his own room. He was too wild in the rest of the server.
I get shoved in my own straight-jacketed room. But yeah, walk like an Egyptian. How dare you, AVX? How dare you? Although that is a funny segue. So, I mean, the first time we spoke was actually during one of my my streams that we mentioned before I went live, was during Game Blast. I think it was day 2, if I remember right. I think the Gaming Muso dragged you in.
It was a very last minute thing.
You looked very unprepared, which I think added to just the humour of everything. I think my 2 favourite memories was you just reaching off camera and your hand coming back with a glass of wine, and then the second thing was giving me my first ever online burn, so much so that it's now become a meme. For those who don't know, I am half Egyptian, and I was wearing a pharaoh hat, and Neil then said I looked like a crap Jamiroquai, and since then that joke has now become ingrained in pretty much all of my streams and everything that I do. So thanks, Neil.
I must have been nervous. I try to avoid sarcasm, the lowest form of wit, as much as possible, but I must have been nervous. It just came out.
Yeah,
you're a crap Jamiroquai.
Of course it did. To the fact that now every Beat Saber stream I do, someone drops the Jamiroquai song in there, which is fantastic. I thoroughly enjoy it, and it keeps me happy. So, such a geezer. God, here we go. The puns are starting now.
Yeah.
Boo, boo. But no, again, you know, I thank you for, I guess, inspiring me to some degree to carry on with retro, because I guess, as you know, speaking frankly about Twitch streaming, you get it's very easy to get demotivated with things. You know, there's people going out there playing, you witnessed it myself the other night, playing COD, you know, the big games, you know, you want to play the big games and be exposed and stuff, and retro's always been something close to my heart. I mean, I've always kept most of my old retro consoles that I've had here, and it's very hard sometimes to keep motivated when you're seeing others playing these big, you know, big AAA titles and stuff like that, and here you are playing some, what did I play? Some crappy CDI, like, Streets of Rage ripoff, and it was terrible, but it was good fun. For everyone else watching, it wasn't for me. And, you know, I guess when you see someone like yourself who's so dedicated to preserving retro and keeping that going, it almost inspires you to do the same as well, and that's why I try and use as much original hardware as well for my streams, for that particular reason. And you know, there's been times where people have popped into my chat going, what the hell's that console? And then it kind of leads me down this kind of education route, which
this is the thing,
strangely comes back to yourself as well.
I'm not really a Twitch streamer, although I have had periods of Twitch streaming, but that was kind of an aside for fun rather than a regular thing.
Sure.
And whenever I look in the retro section of Twitch, it's very sparse compared to the areas where your Dr. Disrespects are and your other massive Twitch streamers. It's a niche within a niche, and I think the key to an audience there is to do exactly what you do, which is to just create this environment where it's lovely for people to come and hang out with you and discover new games and just be with nice people where they feel welcome. But you've got that problem of hooking them in the first place. You know, who's out there searching for Jet Set Willy or, you know, whatever it is that you're doing, streaming that day, Jack the Nipper on the C64. Nobody's looking for that.
Sure.
But they are, but there are very few people are looking for that. So it's so hard to cast the net.
Sure.
And get them in there.
I mean, I think it's very easy to go and get an emulator, slap it on, get it going. But I think that's half the battle done, right? And that's why I like to get, you know, these capture cards, and I'm literally surrounded by cables. I mean, behind my PC is just spaghetti junction of just cables to get things working. And that's the thing, like, I try and get my streams as seamless as possible so people don't have to see that. There are times where things go wrong. That has happened. But yeah, as I said, it's nice to it's nice to actually, be able to actually look at the console. I mean, there's times where I've actually had the Amiga sat next to me and there's been a camera on it to actually show that it is live, and I usually make a joke of actually stroking it whilst I'm live. That's the Amiga before anyone accuses me of anything else. But as I said, it's nice to actually have the actual console there and to actually show people it's actually running live as well. Right, I'm going to quickly make a segue and cut to some questions because there are some good ones that have come in. So,
good. I hope there are some snack-based questions.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably going to be one based. We'll see about that. But the first one is coming from AVX Studios, and the question is: what is the most prized system in the cave, and what's your most wanted yet not obtained console?
I think anyone who watches me knows that I have a history and a love with Amiga computers. And very recently, into the cave, finally came an Amiga 1000, which is just a beautiful machine. An iconic machine, a machine so far ahead of its time. And in my example, a machine that's yellower than the sun. It looks awful. So it works, but it's a prime trash to treasure candidate in terms of, well, possibly, do I retrobrite it? Do I upset a huge amount of people by retrobriting it and getting it wrong? Do I spray paint it? I don't know. I don't know what to do with it, but I'm so happy to have that system. It's got the original monitor. It's got memory expansion. Just beautiful. And of course, inside it's got all of the signatures of the original designers.
Oh, awesome.
Have you seen inside an Amiga 1000 in the plastic? Including Mitchie the dog, Jay Miner's dog, has got his little paw print in there. It's just such a nice system. Nice. So I'm so glad to have that. That's probably the most prized system at the moment. And I've also got hold of, somebody sent me the plate, or is sending me the expansion plate that just pulls off of an Amiga 1000, and theirs is in really good condition. So I'm sending it to a guy, I think he's in Poland. I think he is. And he is analysing plastics and then producing spray paints that perfectly match old computers. He's already done the 500. So I don't know if I'm going to spray paint this thing yet, but I'm helping him to actually produce the paint so that if retrobriting goes horribly wrong, I'll have an exact match to fix it. So that's
really cool. Do you see what I mean about there's specific people who are just dedicating themselves to preservation? Like, that is a perfect example of someone going completely out of their way to do that. What a brilliant thing to learn.
So there was a second part to that question.
So the second part was, let me just jump back. They said, what's your most wanted, not yet obtained system?
Oh, well, yeah. To complete the Amiga set, I need a 3000. I need an Amiga 3000. I'd love a Sam Coupe, but they're so expensive, as are the 3000s, I guess. I would love a Sega Terra Drive, which
Neil.
is...
Keep talking.
And I'd love an FM Towns.
Oh,
do like the look of that system. Yeah. Oh, do you want me to say it a bit loud? I'd love an FM Towns, Dean.
Oh, stop it now. I'm going to have to set this for mature audiences if you carry on like that. So moving on to another quick question. This is quite funny actually, and you'll probably have to pick something up off your desk. Roxalt has asked if any part of you could be genuine Samwa arcade parts, what would it be?
It would be my left shoulder because I've dislocated it at least twice. Ooh. So give me some genuine Samwa rock. I don't care if it clicks even. A nice sort of micro switch there as I move it.
Do you know what? That would be hilarious. That would actually be hilarious. There we go. Wonderful.
There you go.
There you go, Roxelle. He also asked another more serious question. Well, I say more serious, it's just as hilarious, which is, what has been the longest distance so far from a local craftsman to a global customer?
I think you'd have to go to oneclickprint.com where they make fantastic prints with local craftsmen and global delivery. Okay. They can answer the question there.
There we go. I love that. Pillika's asked, given free choice, what would be your ideal Munchie box consist of? Ooh, there we go.
Oh, you know what a Munchie box is, don't you?
Yes.
Oh, it's just fat, fried stuff in a box. Sold exclusively in Scotland, I think, although it might come south of the border at times. Yeah. Do you know what, Pillock? I'm a big fan of a jumbo sausage, a battered jumbo sausage. So we'd have to get a few of them in there, a little bit of fish, and just a huge amount of chips, I think. But mostly the jumbo sausage.
That sounds like a strong choice. I like it. He also asks, again, a more serious question. Out of all the systems you have access to, what's been the most surprising, for good or bad?
The first one that comes to mind is the Sharp X68000 because it's a system I had no knowledge of back in the day. It was such a surprise when this thing turned up with my good friend Gary, who's a very loyal cave dweller. He's been a part of the community for a long time. He turned up and we did a live stream with it, and it just blew my mind, this machine, because it was almost like an Amiga. It was X68000 based, and it had its own set of custom chips like the Amiga does. But this thing was just on another level. Years before the AGA chipset came for the Amigas, this was producing arcade-perfect ports of things like Street Fighter 2, made by the studios who often used it to develop the arcade games themselves. So there was just no difference whatsoever. It's just such a beautiful, powerful machine. And then the other thing that surprised me recently is the Atari 800. Granted, I've been working on an 800 XL, which came out 80... Oh, when did it come out? I should know this. I'm doing a series, 83, 84,
around about then. Sounds about right.
But it's really no different to the Atari 800, which came out in 1979. This was made by J Miner, the custom chips were by J Miner, the same guy who did the Amigas, the early Amigas, and it was just really surprising to see an 8-bit machine that worked so well before the Commodore 64, because that has always been the benchmark for me in terms of custom chips. You've got the SID chip, you've got the hardware sprites and everything. But this thing was doing it in 79, and systems, when they come out like the C64, they're not really pushed to the limit. Nobody really quite knows how to fully utilize them for a few years. If they did, if they'd pushed that, and if the Atari 800 was a little bit cheaper, and the 400 when it came out, then I think that could have been huge. I'm still working through that series, and I want to give some better examples in that series of the hardware sprite handling compared to the likes of the ZX Spectrum and the Amstrad CPC. And just, I think that machine was a lot further ahead of its time than people give it credit for.
I totally agree. And I mean, my brother's in chat, Big Bro Mo, and he, I have some memories. I mean, I was probably a bit too young to remember, but we had an 800 XL. And the one game I very, very vividly remember is Rescue on Fractalus, and that sticks in my mind just for the knock on the door, and if you leave it, the knock slowly gets slower as the area is starting to expire and stuff, and then obviously that alien that then jumps up at you. And I only found out recently that that there was a remake done, I think in I can't remember if it was 2018 or 2008, one of the two. It
wasn't so long ago, yeah.
And I remember seeing it on PC, and I went, oh Christ! And my dad actually started playing it, and he was like, this has brought back a lot of memories. And his one comment was, the knocking noise is not the same. And I was like, trust you to pick up on that one thing. Like someone's gone through the effort of recreating.
I think the remake was voxel based as well, wasn't it? Like it was by a chap called David Fox. There you go. He is in the book. He tells his story about how he developed Rescue on Fractalus. He's the guy who made it, so I got to interview him. Really interesting story from inside Lucasfilm.
Brilliant game.
In 1982.
Yeah, we have fond memories of that, but yeah, I absolutely love that. Yeah, sorry, spoilers if you haven't had over 30 years to play it. Speaking of my brother, he's asked a very interesting question actually, which was before Neil decided. Shall I try that one again? Before Neil decided to dedicate his time to videos and restoration, what was his full-time profession? Ooh.
Full-time profession, it was a career in IT. Goes back to 1999 when I was an IT assistant to a manager. An IT manager in the first... I'll tell you about the first job I took. I'd gone to uni to study computer science and management. And before the first year was up, I actually dropped out. I was like, oh, sod this, I'm going to go and get a job in the industry. I need to earn some money. So I dropped out, went down the job centre, because you could do that back then, and found a job in IT. And it was based in Basingstoke, and I was down in Dorset. So
Basingstoke.
I really did just pack my bags, find a bed sit, move there knowing nobody. I've done this a few times in my life, come to think of it, and just started this job. And it was a great introduction. I got to learn scripting in SQL Server. I was looking after NT servers.
Nice.
I was there when do you remember the I Love You virus dropped into people's mailboxes?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Sprinted around the building shouting, don't open your email, don't open your email.
Don't panic, don't panic.
We avoided an infection because I ran around shouting rather than any technical solution. And then I built my career up from there. I did various IT support jobs for for 5 years, I had my own small business IT support company in Bridport, in Dorset, supporting local businesses. I had several jobs in and out of a company called Merlin Entertainments, who own the London Dungeons, Legoland, Sea Life Centres, Two Swords, all of that. So for probably the best period of my IT career, I supported the servers and networks for the Sea Life Centres around Europe. And my job every week was to go to a different country, go and service the equipment, check the users were happy, and fix things. And that was just a wonderful way to see the world. And ended up being an IT director, supporting shops in places like the Louvre in Paris. So I was living and working in Paris, the Science Centre in Paris, and all of the attractions in that area before that merger that I mentioned fell apart. So it was a very rewarding career, and I got to see a lot of the world. And when I explain it like that, it's like, how the hell did you get burned out by a career like that? It sounds fantastic, but anyone who's worked in IT knows how tough it can get.
I totally can relate. I mean, my brother's taken an IT part, and I went down the marketing route, but I kind of started in IT. And I guess it's with any job, right? Sometimes when you're a little bit wet behind the ears, you want to commit so much to a job that sometimes you overcommit and it becomes your entire life. And I think that's how the burnout happens. It's happened to me a few years ago. There was a time when I was working like 15-hour days, and you would just get to the weekend and you were so physically exhausted that the weekend would just pass by with you just being in bed, at least for me anyway. And then that week would just start, and then it would just continue, and you would sort of get to Christmas and you'd just be like, oh, okay, and then the New Year starts and it's like all over again. And it's very easy to get caught in a whirlwind of burnout. I have definitely been in that, and I can definitely relate to that. I guess now
what added to things was I once had a job for a company called Event Network, who were based in San Diego, and I was working from home in the UK. Although I was very fortunate, they used to take me over there to go and visit them, which was amazing. And they were so much more forward thinking. I'm not saying this is America in general, but that particular company is the only American company I've worked for. They were so much more forward thinking in terms of mindfulness of employees and things like that, that they really went out of their way to make sure working for them was a positive experience. And having worked for a really good company, when you then go back to working to other companies, it's just not the same. It really spoils it for you. Why can't I have that again?
No, sure. No, I guess that's one of these issues where, as you said, depending on where a company is from, can depend on the culture, the ethos of the company. Are they just there to produce people as a modern day production line, or is there actually some kind of
do they really care about their employees?
Exactly. Yeah. Are you a number on a paper roll, or do you actually have a name? It's that kind of thing. And I've definitely experienced that in my time. And for anyone who is feeling like that, do make sure you take time away from your desk or from work. It really is so important. Otherwise, as you said, you do suffer from burnout.
Yeah. And the one regret I've kind of had out of all of that is that although I said I was an IT director, in that position, I was IT. Yes, I was called an IT director, but I was IT. I was doing everything for this company. I'm kind of sad that I was never really in a position where I got to kind of redress the balance and try to be that good manager and try to give those employees that good experience. Who knows? Maybe YouTube will grow to a size where I can actually employ people and finally be the good boss that I've always wanted to be, but we'll see. I'll probably turn out to be a complete tyrant.
Gives a job, Neil. Gives a job. Right, anyway, on that note, I'll move on to another question. AVX Shears has asked, during the micro wars in the 80s, this is a good one, were you Team Spectrum, Team Commodore, or Team Atari? Ooh.
Where's Team Amstrad? Let's see. Team Spectrum, Commodore, Atari. Do you know what? Out of those choices, it would have to be Spectrum, because when you think about being a kid in the UK, anywhere really, you had your circle of friends. And if you were into computers as much as I was, you classified your friends by which computer they had. Yeah. What do I want? Who do I want to hang out with today? What do I want to play? Or do they want to come to my house? I'm the guy with the Amstrad. Well, nobody wants to come to my house. Right, who am I going to go and see? And the majority of my friends had Spectrums, I have to say. So that's probably what I got to play the most. I knew one guy with an Atari who would never let me in his house. So I didn't get to play with his Atari ST. I knew one guy with a NES, and his brother had an Electron. So we used to sneak into his brother's room and play on Elite on the Electron.
Lovely.
But the majority of my friends in the 8-bit era, I had an Amstrad, they had Spectrums. So, yeah, I'll be Team Specky. Tag Team Specky.
So Roxalt has also asked, have you ever received a fake Samwa part?
I don't know if I should tell you this,
Ooh.
but Munster Joysticks once, in a shipment of parts, realised they didn't put these into any of their products,
right?
But they realised that they received a box of fake Samwa parts, and they contacted Samwa directly and said, "This doesn't seem right." And I'm pretty sure that he struck up a really good relationship with Samwa off the back of that, flagging it up with them. But he showed me pictures, and you couldn't tell the difference. He had a very keen eye to spot. And there must be a lot of it going on.
Yeah, and I was just about to come on to that. I mean, as most people know, I've kind of been in and around the fighting game community for a long time, and arcade sticks is something that is very close to me and playing in arcades. And you would be surprised on the amount of people who buy, or try to do upgrades to their sticks or even arcade units, thinking that they've got these Samwa parts, and you start using it and you go, something doesn't quite feel right, and it's only until you take it apart you go, yeah, dude, this is not right. And it actually happened. So there was a group that I go to, or I used to before the Global Affairs took it apart, a group that I used to go to in Luton, massive fighting game community, wonderful people, and I remember this guy was sitting there going, my arcade stick does not feel right. And we were like, oh, okay. So, like, someone's like, oh, I've got a screwdriver, and I've got this, and I've got that. So we're all, like, clambering around this arcade stick. And we whip it apart. And I'm looking at it, and I'm going, that doesn't look the same as what's in mine. And, like, suddenly I blicked it up, and I was like, dude, I'm sure this isn't real. And then one of the guys sort of snatched it in my hand, and he went, yeah, this is a fake. So, yeah, you'll be surprised, actually, how many of those parts are actually kicking around. So, so that's
what? A lot of people won't notice,
genuine Samwa arcade parts. See?
Genuine Samwa arcade
This
parts.
Is why.
A lot of people won't notice, but also you got to remember the way that people consume old machines through emulation these days. Some people play it on the most terrible choice of sticks or joypads, or just the completely wrong thing. So sometimes just any arcade control panel with any micro switches in is better than nothing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But we only want genuine.
We only want genuine, yes.
Only genuine.
Unless you're buying the budget Monster Joystick Mini that doesn't have genuine. That's fine. It's the premium one that has genuine. MonsterJoysticks.com, by the way, if you need a joystick.
Yep, there we go. I have one, as most people know. Look at that.
I've got my gauntlet. I custom made a gauntlet top, because you can get the clear panel for the top, and then you put your artwork in there.
I do need to get one of those, actually. I'm looking.
If anyone needs the template for this, just hit me up and I can email it to you, and you can do your own artwork.
And that's a perfect segue for me to put ! podcast in chat, and you can learn all about Neil and hit him up on Twitter. There we go. Perfect segue.
Hit me up. I've never said that before in my life.
There we go. It's because you're like Mad Street, isn't it? That's what's going on, Neil. You're becoming like one of us now. Another brilliant question that's come out is Pixel at Dawn. Thank you very much for that question.
Hello, Ian.
Out of games, favourite piece of retro software? Sorry, outside of games, what favourite piece of retro software?
Oh, outside of games.
Yeah.
So we're talking sort of utilities and stuff like that. Do you know what? I'm always sad that AMI Pro was crushed by Microsoft Word. I used to love AMI Pro as a word processor. And Fast Tracker 2. I was a huge Fast Tracker 2 fan. So I used to play with trackers to make music on the Amiga, sort of Optimed, that sort of thing. Pro Tracker. And then I had an Amiga 500 with no hard disk, no sampler, nothing like that. So I was just sort of making what I could. And then when I finally got a PC, got my first PC, I put Fast Tracker 2 on. I had a hard disk so I could store samples. It had a microphone input so I could plug my Sony Discman in and sample my Prodigy CD and edit the samples down. Oh, it was glorious. I had so much fun with Fast Tracker 2. And somebody's mentioned Xcopy. Felix mentioned, how can I not mention Xcopy? But Fast Tracker 2 was brilliant because it had built into the tracker, it had a game called Nibbles, which was Snake, like you got in your Nokias. So while you were listening to your music, you could play Snake, which is cool. Fantastic. So wow. I've kind of come back to a game there. We're not supposed to be talking about games. But,
no, but that's cool. The fact that that's even got an inbuilt thing whilst you're being creative is quite cool.
Yeah, it's called Nibbles. And you can still use Fast Tracker. They've remade Fast Tracker 2, so it looks exactly the same, but it runs on a modern Windows 10 or whatever operating system. So if you've not tried it and you want to get into music, give Fast Tracker 2 a go. I mean,
we go.
trackers are an acquired taste compared to other, music making facilities, but I find it really accessible.
I think it would have to be Deluxe Paint for me. Like that was my first introduction as doing graphical art and stuff. I think you have got a copy. I think I can see it in the distance, can I? Because ironically, it's got a bloody pharaoh on it. See? And it's got a pharaoh on it as well. Like,
There you go. I saw someone on Twitter just yesterday say, how was it that the Egyptians could see the future so well that they based their death mask on the Deluxe Paint cover?
Look,
amazing.
Look, if you want me to have a word with my mum, I can definitely do that and see if I can get you an answer. Don't make me walk like an Egyptian on stream. Please don't make me do that again. Damn it. But no, I mean, Deluxe Paint for me has so many fond memories, and funny enough for that front cover as well, because as soon as you say it straight away, people remember that front cover image as well.
Yeah, I mean that's 4. I think it's the Deluxe Paint 3 that people remember a bit more, but it was still the same mask, wasn't it?
No, I agree, but yeah, it's such an iconic, I think, piece of graphical history. And I mean, if Stu is still in chat, he'll probably remember Deluxe Paint very well from his creative days. But yeah, I mean, it's such an iconic piece, and it's funny because there's a lot of that sort of still slips into modern day Photoshop. There's still a lot of the traits of that piece of software that's obviously been carried over, which again is testament to how good that piece of software was.
Story: when I was at college, I used to have a weekend job working at museums in my hometown of Dorchester, down in Dorset. So my main job was working at the Dinosaur Museum. So I was like Ross in Friends. I was the dinosaur museum guy. And if you ask me any question about dinosaurs, I could answer it because back then, I've forgotten it all now, because I'd read the books in the gift shop. So I could just regurgitate stuff. And when they got really busy, I had to work at the Tutankhamun Museum, which was up the road. So I used to work there, and they had sort of recreations of Carter's excavation. And then they had the pièce de résistance at the end was the mask, the Tutankhamun's mask. But of course, people used to come out disappointed because they'd ask me at the end, "Is that the real Tutankhamun mask? Why would Tutankhamun's mask be in Dorchester?"
It's definitely the real one. Definitely.
No. Can I have my money back?
Yes. You've lied to me all this time.
So there you go. I used to work in a Tutankhamun museum. Anyway, back to games.
So many amazing stories. Well, back to games. I mean, I've got Ultima 7 running in the background, which you mentioned as being one of your great games. So what's your fondest memory of playing this then?
The thing about Ultima 7 was it felt so much like a living, breathing world. And I wouldn't recommend that anyone goes back and really plays it now to look for that experience, because RPGs have moved on so much since then, especially in the online arena. But before you'd experienced that, when you played Ultima 7, it felt like the NPCs were real. It felt like you could go up to any bookcase and pick up a different book and read it and get this sense of lore. You had all of the touchies, all of the feelies and everything that came in the box, the map, the cloth map, the tarot cards and all of that. It was just this wonderful, wonderful experience. So Ultima 7, I lost years of my life to. I used to take the manuals to school and read them, the spell books. I used to know the alphabet off by heart because it's all done in sort of old runes, so you have to decipher all of the signs in the game and stuff. I could just read them.
Wow.
I loved it so much. So when I finally got to interview Richard Garriott, who made the game, that was a real moment for me. I really fanboyed.
No, sure. I mean, you're probably not doing it justice on this webcam, but I mean, I'm sort of looking over my shoulder, and it's for how old it is, it still looks incredibly playable. I mean, graphically, obviously, you can't really compare it to modern days, but the graphics are very, you can identify everything that's going on in there, which I think makes a massive difference with that type of game. But yeah, I can see how you can get easily lost in such a game like that. There you go. They've just found a mysterious
that's a funny bit that you've just come to. Yeah, so that's an Easter egg. That is a Kirathi ship from Wing Commander. It's just crash landed in a field because Wing Commander was made by the same company, Origin.
Yeah, that's another game I absolutely adored as a child. I loved Wing Commander so much. I think I've played every version of Wing Commander that's ever been made, even like the multiple versions that were on a 286, a 386, a 486, then the Amiga, the 3DO versions. Yeah, I was obsessed at one stage, and then they decided to make a film, and it killed it. Damn it! Make a decent Wing Commander film, a decent one. decent.
Well, you've got Star Citizen, which is going to be the spiritual successor, isn't it? It's by the same chap.
Yeah,
Chris Roberts, isn't it? Chris Roberts.
I think I worry about projects like that. I feel like they're going on for so long that the anticipation of it may slowly start to teeter off, and I think the main thing of it may go. I could be wrong. I could be proven wrong, but
it's been in development for so long now, hasn't it? I backed it. I can't even remember what email address I backed it with. I don't know if I'll even be able to access the installation when it finally comes out. But I saw yesterday they were announcing that they're going to release a roadmap for the roadmap for the development on it. It's got that convoluted. Yeah.
Gosh, that sounds intense. But I mean, another game that I'm just looking over your shoulder is a copy of Wings there. I mean, me and my dad used to play that on the Amiga religiously, and it's such a great game. Hysterically, if you play it on an emulator with I think it's the CPU too high, it becomes completely unplayable, and you end up with like a jet fighter World War One plane, just like, and you can't control anything. But in the time, like that game, what it tried to achieve, and you had the various different missions where you were kind of either in the cockpit or you were doing a bombing run or you were doing a strafing run and stuff like that. It was just such a creative game. And the bloody thing was, if you got shot down and died, you started from the beginning. What a bastard.
It's got a lot of parallels, that game, with Wing Commander. It's that same sort of combination of missions, 3D fighting, not in space, but in a biplane, and then it really sort of tugs on your heartstrings with the story element in between. If you never played it, I played through Wings again recently because I love it so much on the Game Boy Advance. There's a really good version.
It's a very good version. Yes, I was going to say that actually. There have been. It's funny. It's one of those ports where I think most people kind of overlooked it because obviously they didn't know the history of Wings. But yeah, I agree. It is actually a very, very good version of it. I'm gonna have to get that out. Actually, I think I've actually got a version of it kicking around somewhere. As my brother's just said, the flappy scarf when you're flying.
Flappy scarf, the Biggles look. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. I guess from me, I'm going to lock off the questions for now. A question from me, and I guess this is going to be a difficult one, possibly for you to answer, is what's your proudest moment that you've achieved since becoming a full-time YouTuber, or is that the actual achievement for you?
It's hard to say there's one moment. It's tempting to grab I've got the 100,000 subscriber award next to me,
which is a fantastic achievement. Here we go. He's gonna go and get it. He's gonna go and get it. Someone said being on this podcast, possibly for me.
There you go. That's what it looks like.
What a thing of beauty. Yeah, we can see himself. I can see myself. God, that was weird.
You can see your face in a YouTube award. Where are you?
There he is. Hey.
I'm going to say that not because it's not about that number. It's not about that number. It's really about legitimizing the choices that I made a couple of years back to really put myself into YouTube, and then more recently to do it full time. It really legitimizes that choice. I made the right choice for once in my life. I made the right choice. It's paying off, and that is just something physical that represents that. So we'll go with the YouTube award, but the numbers aren't important.
And I think again that's something that I think is very. How can I word this? I think it's something that I get drawn to probably yourself more than other YouTubers, is that you've always remained the same. There are people who, once they hit a certain level, they're kind of, I guess for a better word, their ego takes over. They become very about themselves. You have such a strong community and you're very much about that. And that's, I think, always kept you level-headed. And that's not to say that what you've achieved hasn't been incredible, but you've always maintained that level of self-respect. You've always stayed the same person. You haven't kind of let this kind of, I'm the retro man cave, I can do whatever I want, I can flaunt myself, everybody knows who I am. You've always kept that same level of, I am Neil, I always will be Neil, and you always thank people, and I think that's again testament to what you've achieved. But yeah, I mean, taking the leap that you have from obviously what you were doing previously to become a full-time YouTuber, I mean, for anyone who kind of wants to delve into their own business and leave a full-time job, to have that safety net of knowing every month you're getting something into your bank account, to having to get up every morning to be driven to make the fantastic content you do. And I mean, I was looking through some of your older videos, and even your videos that were kind of 2 years old, are still fantastic. But going through the years, I mean, obviously to what you produce now is such a brilliantly well-tailored, put-together story through each of your videos. And again, I think that's something that's really nice. It isn't just, here's a thing, go and enjoy it. You're really educating people through, and
there's been a lot of trial and error in that process. And the thing that I've been most pleased with in the format more recently is the bringing together of the history elements and the repair elements to do the trash to treasure. It's now sort of part history lesson, part repair. Sure. Whereas before it was just me fixing something. So I'm quite pleased with that. And I mean, I remember there was a time a couple of years back where I was too scared to put myself on camera. I didn't want to put my face on camera. And that was a huge step for me to put myself on that. And I didn't do it because I wanted to become what the channel was about. I didn't want it to become about me.
Sure.
I simply did it because I thought it would make the channel more personable if people could see the face behind the thing. Sure. And it was, no longer just the desk. So that's why I did it. And even to this day, I'm still conscious of appearing too much on camera because I never want to make it about me. I want to make it about the thing on the desk that everyone wants to see. They don't want to see me blathering on. They want to see.
No, absolutely.
So there's just enough, I think, to keep it personable. Yeah.
No, I agree, and I think you've got that humble nature where you've kind of kept that balance of the item that you're reviewing, and obviously the kind of, as you said, the personable area, and you've got that perfect mix, and I think that's what works really well. I'm just going to quickly jump to a question that was put into chat by Stu. Sensible Stew.
Okay.
He has asked, this is going to be interesting, what would you say is one of the worst games you've played? A game so bad it's burnt itself into your memory and won't go nicely.
Oh, Sensible Soccer, easily.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know why anyone would want to go and play that. Love you, Stu.
The worst game is usually, the worst games are usually ports, usually really badly done ports.
Go on, say
it. One that I know you like in particular is Outrun on the Amiga.
Man. I love that.
It looks nothing like the original game. The viewpoint is completely wrong for a start. It's got that terrible intro. But even before Outrun on the Amiga, and it hurts so much because I'm such a big fan of the Outrun on the arcade. The Outrun. Listen to me, I sound like Dad. Have you played the Outrun? Before that, I bought Outrun on the Amstrad CPC. And it came with the game on one cassette and the music on another cassette. So I had to move my dad's Amstrad, or whatever, I think it was a Mitsumi stack system, next to the Amstrad. So I could put the music tape in, play the music, and then that was the best part of the whole thing, was the music on the Amstrad. The game was terrible, but the worst part about that was I had to go to the dentist and have 5 teeth pulled out of my head for some dental work. And my mum, to soften the blow, gave me a little bit of money. She was the tooth fairy. She gave me a little bit of money for having these teeth pulled, and I spent it on Outrun for the Amstrad. That's why it hurts so much. I literally had teeth pulled out to buy that POS game.
Can we buy a copy and set fire to it just in your honour? I think that would be the right thing to do. God Almighty, yeah, that Outrun is
Matsui. Thank you.
That Outrun that you showed me is, till this day, I still have that stunned look on my face. For anyone who hasn't seen that intro, I think there's a clip somewhere on my Twitch where literally I don't say anything for about 3 minutes because I'm just stunned by what I hear, what I saw. I think I played... in fact, I think that was the game that actually crashed my Amiga. Because I remember I started it and all the graphics started going funny. I just went, no, that's it, I'm done. Right, good night, everyone good night. See you later. Yeah, it was... It's amazing how... And I mean, Stu actually mentioned this on the podcast. It's amazing how you can take a great iconic game like Outrun, or insert another title, and start to port it to different versions, and they are just horrific. I didn't know until recently that there was a port of Final Fight on the Spectrum.
Oh yes, I think it's only on the 128K. I think,
that's
but
correct.
Yeah, it exists. It's a thing. It's like
tried to play
it's like playing treacle, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I think it's got a frame rate of about 4 frames every hour. I've never seen Mike Haggart look so angry to be stuck in one frame in all of my life. He was just like,
yeah.
he's going to hit something. Crack. There we go. He's finally hit something. It's like it would take him 2 years to try and clean up Metro City. But never mind. He did a good job.
They had to try it. I mean, these franchises were so huge. They had to try
Agreed.
and make money off of it. But, I don't think anyone would have been disappointed if Final Fight looked a bit more like Renegade and moved quickly.
Yeah.
Than that, yeah.
What game was it? Oh, Final Fight on the... Is it the Mega Drive or the Master System? One of them's been completely stripped down. It's got like these very smaller characters, if I remember rightly. I think it's Final Fight on the Mega Drive.
Oh, they did that on Double Dragon on the NES. Is very small and different, but completely playable. Yeah.
Sorry, maybe it was I think maybe it's Final Fight on the NES. Maybe I'm wrong there, but yeah, I remember they kind of shrunk all the characters down and made them sort of small and mini and stuff. I think it's worth a fortune on eBay last time I checked. But yeah, it's one of those ports where they kind of took a completely different approach to it, rather than going, well, we could port this like for like and have it terrible, or we just reskin it and make it playable, which I think is probably the better option. But yeah, for anyone who hasn't heard that Outrun on the Amiga by US Gold, my God, I've never had the words US Gold planted into my head more than
orchestral stabs everywhere.
Yeah, just like an orchestra and then this big crescendo crash at the end. It was like, oh, okay, so that was an experience. And then it's like, did. After all that, it's like, this does not go well. Anyway,
I see in the chat that Yellow Belly there has mentioned Bridget. He says, no mention of Bridget is a terrible game. I can't slate Bridget because it was either Bridget or Hunchback is the only game that my mother's ever played.
Right.
She played it on the Amstrad CPC, and that was it. For her, that was gaming. So I can't slate my mum's favourite and only game.
I can't actually remember my mother ever playing a game, actually. My brother can probably vouch for that. But the only memory she does have is my dad playing Space Invaders and really pissing her off, because all she could hear at night was and for hours, and then she finally lost her rag, which I think was absolutely hilarious. And I never let my dad live that memory, live it pretty much on a daily basis, and remind him of that, because we were talking about the 800 XL, and I was like, oh, you had Space Invaders for that, didn't you? And my mum's head just sort of whipped round and went, don't you dare talk about it. I'm like, you know what I'm going to talk about. You know damn well what I'm going to talk about. Right, well, I think that is about it, and I'm incredibly grateful to you, Neil. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and thank you for all the incredible work that you do as well. And I think for everyone in chat, and if you're watching this on demand, I can definitely say Neil is probably the most hardest working person in the retro community. I can say that wholeheartedly. The work he does is outstanding, and I'm really excited to see what this next coming year is going to bring. And I think being in lockdown has probably been an interesting one for all of us. I think the one thing that you actually managed to do was actually bring us all together with some of the streams that you did, and still managed to keep everyone together and get everybody talking to each other through people submitting videos and stuff to you and stuff like that. And I think that was such a very good thing that you did, because I think it can become a very lonely place during lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you managed to do was bring a real sense of community and get everybody involved, so that people didn't necessarily feel alone. And through things like your Discord, it allows people to just interact and not feel alone, and have things to talk about, whether it be retro or Scotch eggs is another fine topic.
And the legacy of those videos that we did because of the event, the daily live stream, is that I now do a monthly live stream, and the next one is today at 6 p.m. UK time.
There we go.
It'll be on my second YouTube channel. Where can I give you a link to that? It's called Retromancave Extra Caverns. Yeah. So go and check that out. So 6 p.m. UK time, we'll be showing videos from cave dwellers. The theme today is flight, not necessarily flight simulators, but flight. I've got a ton of deliveries behind me. We'll be doing live unboxings, so lots of cool stuff to show you, and just a general chat and catch up on what's been going on in the cave this month. And can I show you one more thing?
Go for it.
Just one more thing.
Here we go.
Because I did have an interview this morning, which was recorded rather than live. So they got the first look, but this is going to be the first look, the world exclusive that goes out first.
Oh, and I've got it on my podcast. Good God, here we go.
So yesterday, 250 of these arrived.
Oh, it's the Hoffman.
I've actually got it. I've actually got the physical thing. Okay. So Hoffman, a well-respected music creator for the Amiga, and in the demo scene, came and did a rave in the cave, which was a wonderful thing. And I've turned it into a vinyl record, a double vinyl record. I designed the art. There we go. He's going to sign the inside.
Ooh. Awesome.
And it's double. Let me show you the vinyl, because I've had a test pressing before, which was on your classic black vinyl. But the final record is semi-transparent red vinyl. Oh, look at that. So all I need to do now is to get Hoffman to come and sign them on the 23rd of August. We'll do a stream on that day. And on that day, we'll launch it, and you'll be able to buy it through whichever store outlet we choose. I might use my Etsy shop. I might use Amazon. I'm not sure yet. But you'll be able to buy it on the 23rd. Patrons will get a few days early access to buy an allocation, so they don't miss out. I hope you guys enjoy it, because it's fantastic. And it's I've never made a vinyl record before. It's been such a fun experience to create a thing and to get it out there.
Yeah, I don't even know
like
what
the book.
That would be.
Yeah, it follows my policy of, which is now, this is something that applies to the videos, to the vinyl, to the book. My whole ethos at the moment is, well, if I want that thing to exist, then other people probably do or might do. So I'm just going to go and make it. And that's how things
fantastic
happen.
Work. I mean, I mean, when we did the stream, was it 2 weeks ago? I think it was, or was it last week? I can't even remember now. For the Amigos charity stream. I mean, you blasted out a couple of bits of that record, and I mean, like, I was stunned how good the quality is. So I can only imagine what that entire record is going to sound like. So, but yeah, as I said, if you are interested, make sure !podcast, follow Neil on all of those things. Sign up to the Patreon if you want to, and get earlier access to all of
entirely optional
wonderful videos, and early access to the Hoffman thing, which I probably will take advantage of that. Then I need to get a record player. Damn you, Neil, you're making me spend money again.
You won't regret it. You won't regret it.
But no, I mean, it's a fantastic thing you've got there, and again, it's one of those wonderful things by you having someone on, and that's then spun off into another project. And as you know, as I said, the final result there looks absolutely fantastic, and I think people are going to absolutely love it.
And if anyone out there can suggest any other musicians who have that kind of retro connection, who might, come and do a session in the cave, we'll do a live stream, and maybe we can do another vinyl. Someone like Luke Hash or someone like that. I'd love to.
One thing I was going to ask, is it only going to be those versions you're going to do? Is there going to be like a digital download payment one that people could get?
There'll be 250 signed records, first pressings. We'll see how popular it is. If there's demand, then the minimum I can order it in is 250. So there'll have to be that much demand. But even if I do a second pressing, they won't be signed and they won't be numbered. So these will be first editions, if you like. And with Hoffman's permission, I will include sort of a link with the record, so you can download them digitally if you want to. But I got to say, it sounds amazing on the vinyl. It really captures that authentic Amiga sound, because we recorded them out of his Amigas, so it really does sound good. Yeah,
you seem to have a strong love for drum and bass and jungle as well. I've noticed that in your videos. It's always like, oh, I'm very well spoken, and then suddenly like I'm getting this massive drum and bass beat hit, and I'm like, hang on a minute, this isn't Neil. I'm expecting like piano and kind of like piano music, like elevator music, and then like this drum and bass whilst cleaning capacitors.
Well mean I can't listen to drum and bass. Look, good music is good music, whether it's Kate Bush or whether it's LTJ Bookham. Good music is good
capacitors, let's go. I'm like, hang on a minute, what's going on here? But yeah, it's and we haven't even mentioned capacitors today. See how well behaved I was. Although I did at the beginning, actually. I was talking about the laser active. Sorry, brother, as he's currently three rims away, probably working on that laser active at the moment. Poor Git, never mind. R.I.P. that laser active, but it will be back soon anyway. But anyway, I think it's probably time to wrap this up before we get any more crazy and start raving in the den, as I call this place. But from me and Neil, thank you so much, Neil, and thank you for all the incredible work you do. I know it's been a pain in the backside to try and align dates, but we have finally done it. Hopefully, in the near future, we'll get you back on again and talk about.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to come to the cave in person for one of our streams. We'll do a gaming stream when the world is back to normal.
Indeed.
You can pick a system. And we can do one of our streams that we used to do so frequently, but haven't been able to do.
Maybe we can do the Sensible Soccer rematch live at the
Oh yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, let's do that.
Make sure I bring my monster joystick, which has genuine Samwa arcade parts, and If only I had £1 for every time I said that. Never mind. But yeah, I mean, we'll definitely have to come on to the cave at some point. But yeah, as I said, thank you so much for being a guest. I think everybody's thoroughly enjoyed this. I definitely have. And for anyone who's currently watching this on demand, all of Neil's details will be linked below, including the Kickstarter, Patreon links, and all of that good stuff. And yeah, I don't know when you get the link for that Hoffman record. Maybe I can put that into the description of the videos and stuff as well to get that pushed out as well. So, but yeah, so from me, Machine Dean, and from Neil, thank you so much, and have a great weekend wherever you are. But yes, from me, Machine Dean, I'm signing out. Stay on the line, Neil. We'll catch up.
Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. Me, Machine Dean, signing out.